What do you want to do with your life, and how have life events helped you make that decision? I decided to become a teacher. Why? Well, in this video, we're about to find out. And that begins in...
Three, two, one.
Welcome to episode 2 of Spilling the Beans, where I discuss the reason why I became a teacher. And let's get right down into it. Well, first and foremost, it's because I enjoy working with kids. I mean, that's the bare bones, boring aspect of it. I also coached basketball while I was in college, and I really enjoyed my time doing that. I coached basketball for quite a bit, and so like I said, I had a lot of fun doing that, but I also was a camp counselor for YMCA store camps, where a school invited me to go along and to be responsible for, I think we had about 8 to 10 fifth graders at that time, and we went away for an entire week, so we were doing activities all week. And that was a lot of fun as well. And I felt like I was making a difference when I was doing those different types of activities in my life. But believe it or not, I actually didn't go to school or go to college to become a teacher. My first choice was becoming a computer programmer. So let's rewind a little bit and let me explain that story to you and then how my journey evolved. So back when I was in high school, I ended up getting a TI graphing calculator. And I played around with it, messed around with it a little bit, and I found that there was actually a place in there where I could program. I had no idea what it was, but I opened up the TI manual and I read through it and learned all the different aspects of the control for what you can do with the calculator. And I started programming in the calculator here and there. Started out with little formulas and storing variables, storing numbers and variables and things like that. But then I got really good at it and I decided to do a game. And I actually did a couple games. The first one, and I'm super proud of both of them. The first one was I made a tic-tac-toe game where you could play against the computer or you could play against another player who had another graphing calculator. You would actually hook the calculators up together and you could play that way. The other game that I made was a baseball game. And so I designed the back end of it, the hardcore programming. One of my buddies in my class, he was actually really good at sketching on the graphing calculator. So he made a whole bunch of drawings and animations and we put it together and you would see a pitcher throw a ball and you had to press enter. And when you pressed enter, that's when the batter would swing the ball. And of course I had some random number generator in there to determine the probability of you getting a strike or getting a ball if you didn't swing, or on first base, second base, third base, or a home run. And it was pages and pages of code that I got in on the graphing calculator. And so that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it so much that I actually took a computer programming class I think it was my junior year, or maybe it was my senior year of high school. So my junior year, that's when I took Pascal 1 and Pascal 2. And then my senior year, because they didn't offer any more computer programming classes after that, I ended up taking an independent study. That's where I ended up buying a book on C++, and I taught myself C++. And I'm really proud of that. So when I went to college and I took the C++ class, I pretty much knew everything already. I just had to get used to their style of doing it. So it really wasn't that big of a deal. And I continued on, and I ended up taking multiple computer programming classes. I also taught myself Visual Basic, and that was super cool as well. I made some fun games on there, one of them including Yahtzee. And Yahtzee, I'm not sure if you've ever played it before, but that's a lot of fun as well, and I'm really proud that I ended up making that game on my own. So going through all of those, and actually another programming class that I took during college was databases. And in databases, there's very basic databases that you can work with, but then there's also very complex databases. So I felt like I was kind of somewhere in the middle where I understood the layout of it. And I actually made a fantasy basketball program with a Visual Basic front end and an Oracle 8i back end of it. And once again, I kind of had to teach myself how to program an Oracle 8i. It's very action-based, so it took a little bit of playing around with. But either way, I did end up making a fantasy basketball program, and I thought that was really cool as well. So I'm thinking, okay, this is kind of what I'm going to be doing the rest of my life, and this is fun. Well, kind of fast forward a little bit after I got my computer science degree, and I tried to enter the market. And my dad was working at American Axle at the time, although he was working in the factory, but he was able to somehow get information that the information technology department was looking to hire people. So I ended up getting an interview with the director of IT operations at American Axle. And I was so nervous about that interview that I didn't sleep the night before. And when I went to that interview, I was like trying to stay awake and do the best that I could. And you would think that in a normal interview that you'd have the person doing the interview would ask questions and I would answer them, ask questions, answer them, kind of going back and forth. Well, that actually wasn't the case. The person that was doing the quote unquote interview was telling me all about his life story ever since he was a little kid. And keep in mind, the interviewer probably at that time, if I had to guess, probably was about 65 years old. So he had been around the block, and I had to listen to his life story. And that took probably, I would say, about an hour and a half to 2 hours. He was showing me pictures and things like that. And I was literally falling asleep. Every time he got up and would walk around the room, my eyes would close and I would have to open them and try and stay focused because like I said, I couldn't sleep the night before. I was so nerve-wracked about potentially getting this really cool job. So when he was done with his story, I'm like, okay, now is the interview part. No. He turned to me and goes, well, I just really wanted to bring you in here so you could get experience with an interview. We actually don't have any openings right now, but if we do, then we'll let you know. And at that time, I was like, whoa, wait a second here. This actually wasn't an interview. It's just you telling me about your life. And I was extremely upset because when you walk into an interview, you're expected to get questions and potential job offer. You may not get it, but at least you're there for a specific purpose. I had no idea that the whole purpose of me being there in his mind was to tell me about himself. And I was really upset by that. Well, the next day comes around, and believe it or not, the day that I had my interview, someone quit. So he ends up calling me, or Human Resources calls me and said, yeah, we're actually looking for an intern, and we want to bring you on as an intern. So that means that I'm not actually an employee of the company just yet. I need to, I guess, work my way into a full-time position. But I was like, okay, no, that's really cool. And I ended up going in whatever day that they had me start, day number one. Of course, that's after all the human resource paperwork and things like that. But my first day there, I met with the person that interviewed me, and he kind of showed me around the place. And he said, all right, for the time being, we have all of our computers in the warehouse. And we went out to the warehouse. And it wasn't giant by any means, but it was still it's a decent sized warehouse. When you think of warehouses, you think of like Costco or Sam's Club. And I would say the warehouse that I was looking at probably was about a fourth of the size. But nonetheless, that's where they had their computers and some servers and just equipment just laying around. And he turns to me and he goes, we need to get this place cleaned up. So come in tomorrow and don't wear any good clothes. Kind of wear some scrub clothes. And, we want you to start cleaning it up. So dusting and tagging all the different computers. So we don't have any of this stuff tagged. And if you don't know what that means I needed a barcode or grab an inventory of everything that they had there. So that really turned me off. I'm like, well, I understand that I'm an intern, kind of the low man on the totem pole, but why isn't this stuff tagged already? And this isn't kind of what I signed up for. I want to get into programming. So I ended up doing it for the next couple of days, and then he got me off that assignment and had me work on some other things. But I didn't like it at all. And that kind of got me to thinking, I'm not really sure this is what I want to be doing. This isn't really what I signed up for, even though I understand I had to take some bumps and bruises along the way. I just didn't see a path for success where I'm going. And I met some cool people. The guy I actually worked with was super cool, and he showed me around and kind of got me in the groove of how things work over there. He ended up picking me up, and we used to go out to lunch together and even hang out outside of work. Super cool guy. But I found that whether it was my fault or not, or whatever the case was, that I was picking up bad habits. And that just wasn't me. And I was showing up late to work. I was going to different locations because my job wasn't just in one spot. It was in multiple locations, 3 or 4 to be exact. So that way I could get away with showing up late to work because I just had to show up where my boss wasn't. And I'm not proud of that, but that's kind of where I was at that particular time. I didn't feel productive. I didn't feel like I was a good employee. I didn't feel that I was helping out in any way, shape, or form. Essentially, if any of you have ever watched the movie Office Space, that's what I felt like. I felt like a complete waste. So I had to get out of there, and it was either, okay, maybe try find a job somewhere else or see if you can make an impact. And that's when I got to thinking, maybe teaching is probably the route for me because I did enjoy coaching basketball. I did enjoy going to the store camp, and actually the store camp 2 years in a row. And my best friend at the time, also, well, still my best friend, but at that particular time, he was in school for teaching. And he said, I actually really enjoy this. And kind of like what I was saying before, I felt like by becoming a teacher that I could help people. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to go back to school. And at the time, I had saved up money to pay my way through college because I had already gotten my degree. So I was kind of paying back on that. Now, keep in mind that college expenses weren't as extravagant as they were now. So I could manage it. And that's what I did. I was actually working 3 or 4 jobs while going to college to become a teacher. And I forged my own path, meaning that I had to go to multiple universities in order to get done. Now, I had a home university, but I was taking summer school and actually school in the springtime and summertime because there was 2 different summer semesters essentially. So I did both summer semesters, and I had to go to different universities to complete my requirements to get done as fast as I potentially could. And I really enjoyed that. And so I'll talk about my university and college trips during another episode because this is all about me becoming a math teacher, and I want to talk about college at a different episode. So another reason why I chose math, number one, is because I was actually decent at it. I wasn't great at it, but I was decent at it. And when I think back to high school, my math teacher at the time when I was in high school, I loved him because he really didn't do anything. He would do one example on the board and give and the rest of the time was all free time. So essentially, that's when I learned how to play euchre. Because when you're given free time, then, for me, I wanted to get my homework done, but he didn't assign much, if anything at all. And we just played cards. And he was actually getting ready to retire. And what that means is that he really didn't care. And it's sad to say, but like I said, back at the time, I loved it because as a student, as a 15, 16-year-old kid, nobody wants to do any work. You just want to get through the class and get an A, right? Well, fast forward to me being in college or actually becoming a teacher and teaching these math classes. In college, I really struggled. Even in my senior year of high school, when I took pre-calculus, I really struggled in there because that teacher actually taught and had expectations for us. So that was really difficult for me. And even when I got hired in, I struggled a little bit because even though it's high school math, yeah, I mean, I have a computer science degree. I had to take all the way through Calc 3, but I struggled in those classes for the most part. I did turn it around, but it was quite a bit of a challenge. And so I set out to never ever be like my math teacher. And I had him for 2 years. And think about that, 2 years of playing euchre versus doing the math that I needed to help be successful beyond high school. Speaking of challenges, I didn't get hired right away. At the time that I was doing my interviews, I had a good handful of interviews, so I was pleased with that. But the amount of people that were interviewing for math positions was crazy at that time. You're talking about hundreds and hundreds of applications that these schools had to sift through in order to pick out who they thought would be the best candidate. So that was difficult in and of itself. Nowadays, you could literally just walk in and say, hey, I'm a math teacher, and they'll give you an interview on the spot. So I had to go through and do a 1 semester student teaching experience, and that was really good. And then after that, I was free to go. I had my teaching certificate. Of course, I had to take the state tests in order to become teaching certified. But once I did that, then I started getting interviews. And for my first year, I didn't get hired in. They were picking people that had experience. And like I said, nowadays you don't need any experience. You just walk on in, and there's a lot of school districts that would love to have a really good math teacher. But even though I didn't secure my job right after I got certified, I was able to secure a long term teaching position. And I actually had three long term teaching positions my first year. All of them were maternity leaves. So maternity leave can last probably about 3 to 4 months depending on the situation. The first one I completed successfully. The next one I completed successfully. And I'll never forget my third long term sub position. I went in, and it was word of mouth. The principal put out email to a whole bunch of principals that she knew and said, "Hey, we need a long-term sub for math. Can anyone recommend anyone?" And so my name was put in was sent back to her, and she called me up and said, "Hey, can you come on in? I need a teacher to teach this AP calculus class, and here's the section I want you to teach. Come on in next Tuesday, and if you do a good job, then we'll discuss maybe doing another day where you come on in and teach, and we'll just kind of go from there." Because I guess the teacher had been out on maternity leave, but they couldn't find someone that could either relate to the kids or just wasn't a good fit. I'll leave it like that. What was really awkward was when I went in that day to teach the AP calculus class, the substitute teacher they had in the time was there, and we walked right past each other. I was like, oh man, this is the person that they're trying to replace. I felt terrible about it, but I went in, and like I said before, the principal had said, go in, do the best job you can, and then we'll talk about it and see if you can come on in for another day of teaching. And I went in, did the best that I could, and when I was done, we were walking out, and she said, can you start tomorrow? I think I did that good of a job. And it was cool that I felt like I did that good of a job where she wanted me to start. And so I did. And that kind of finished up my first year of teaching, even though it was long-term subs. Not ideal, but I was gaining experience. And I earned letters of recommendation from the three places that I had been to. So that next summer, I did some more interviews. And that's when I ended up hiring in the location that I am at now. And let me actually rewind a little bit. Another one of my interviews that I did that I didn't get, I'll never forget this. I was sitting down waiting for the interview committee to call me in. So I was sitting in the main office of school during a school session. It was during a school day, rather. And I'm sitting there, and when you're sitting in the main office, you have students coming in and out, coming in and out. And one student walks in, and is a female student, and this is really funny for me to share because back at the time, I was, gosh, how old was I? I was probably about 25, 26 years old. And female student walks in and she goes, "Oh, are you here for the math position?" I'm like, "Yep, that's, I am." I had my interview packet all with me, my binder with me, ready to share everything. And I kid you not, she looks me up and down and goes, "I wish you were my math teacher," and walked away. So yeah, that kind of, wow, I'm going to leave it at that, okay? But no, I didn't get that job, probably for the better, and ended up having another interview and ended up getting that job where, like I said, where I'm currently at. So it's been a lot of fun where I'm at. It's been hard work, but the one thing that I always take away and always try and do is that, yeah, I think math is important and it helps build problem solving skills, critical thinking skills, and even though you're not going to use every single one of those topics throughout your life, which I do tease my kids, they say, "When am I ever going to use this in life?" And I said, well, if you get older and are blessed enough to have kids, you can help them tutor, or you can tutor them or help them in their math. Because if not, then you're going to pay me $60 an hour to teach them, and then they get a kick out of that. But in reality, math does build problem solving skills, critical thinking skills, and you do need those in life. That's what helps you get through life and get through the hard times. So that's another reason why I chose math, and I became pretty good at it over the years. But the number one thing that you have to remember, and this not only applies for teaching, but it applies for anything in life, is that specifically for teaching, because that's what I do, it's really not about the content per se. Yes, I have to teach it, and the kids have to become proficient at it, but it's how you treat them. Because a lot of people are right. You're not going to remember this math. You're not going to remember the science. You're not going to remember whatever subject it is per se as you get older and start your own life. But you're going to remember how that person treated you, how that teacher treated you. So if I can treat them right and have fun with them and enjoy the time that I'm with them, then hopefully when they get older and say, man, my math teacher, I don't remember anything that I did in that class, but I had fun in there. He treated me well. Nice person, really good guy, and I hope he's doing well, and I hope they're all doing well as well. And of course, you lose touch. That's the sad thing about teaching is that once a student graduates or they leave your class, even though you enjoyed that time with those particular students, everyone moves on. And so they need to start their own life. And it's sad, but I do enjoy hearing from them every once in a while. Students will email me back, or former students, I should say, will email me back and let me know how they're doing. And that's always awesome. But I really relish the times that we have together because I know that at some point it's all going away. We all move on, and that's just the way life is, and that's how it's supposed to be. So at the end of the day, I hope that those people will remember me and that I had a positive impact in their life. And that leads me back to what we started with. What do you want to do with your life, and how have life events helped you make that decision? I hope this helped you in some way, shape, or form, or at least made your day a little bit better. I appreciate everyone listening on in, and I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.